When you think about a modern aircraft like the Diamond DA42, what really separates a perfect flight from a potential problem? It's not just skill, and it's definitely not luck. It all comes down to a very specific set of numbers. And these aren't just suggestions, they're the absolute limits and performance targets that a pilot lives by, every single second they're in the air.
So for this explainer, we're going to do something a little different. Let's forget the textbook for a minute. We're going on a virtual flight. I want you to imagine you're right here with us, walking around a real DA42. And as we go through each part of the flight, we're going to digitally paint the aircraft with those critical numbers, the exact data a pilot has to know to fly this machine safely and with precision.
Okay, so before we even think about firing up the engines, let's do a quick walk around. Just understanding the plane's basic dimensions, that gives us a real feel for its performance and how it's going to handle in the air.
Right away, you can see how these dimensions give the DA42 its signature look. That wide wingspan compared to its length? That's not just for aesthetics. Nope. That's what gives this plane such fantastic stability and efficiency, especially when you're cruising way up high. It's just a sleek, modern design that is built for performance from the ground up.
But honestly, before any flight, this number right here is probably the single most important one to get right. 1785 kilograms. That is the absolute, non-negotiable, maximum takeoff weight. We're talking aircraft, fuel, people, bags, the whole shebang. If you go over by even 1 kilo, you're not just bending a rule, you're messing with the plane's performance and maybe even its structural integrity. It's a hard limit for a very good reason.
All right, let's climb into the cockpit. Getting this beautiful machine off the ground isn't about just flooring it and pulling back. Oh no. The takeoff is this carefully choreographed dance with physics, and it's all about hitting very specific speeds at exactly the right time.
The very first critical speed we are looking for is called VR, which stands for rotation speed. This is the moment of truth, really. It's the point where there's enough air flowing over the wings to generate lift, and you can actually leave the ground.
And for a typical DA42 takeoff, that magic number is 78 knots indicated airspeed, or KIS. That's the speed you see right on the instruments. The pilot is laser-focused on that airspeed indicator. 60, 70, and right at 78, a smooth, gentle pull on the controls, and just like that, the runway falls away. You are flying.
The second you're off the ground, the goal totally changes. Now, it's all about gaining altitude, safely and efficiently. To do that, the pilot immediately targets VY, or the best rate of climb speed. And get this, it isn't about going as fast as you can over the ground. It's about going up as fast as you can.
So to get that best rate of climb, the pilot will pitch the nose up to maintain exactly 90 knots. At this one precise speed, the engines and the wings are just in perfect harmony, working together to give you the most altitude gain per minute. This is how you clear trees, buildings, and get safely on your way.
So now we're up and climbing, let's talk about the flight envelope. Think of it like the rules of the road, but for the sky. It's the range of speeds and conditions where the aircraft is designed to be totally safe, and pilots see this visually through some really simple color-coded markings on their instruments.
These colored arcs are a pilot's best friend, seriously. The white arc, that tells you the speed range where you can safely use your flaps. The green arc is your home base. That's the normal operating range where you'll do most of your cruising. The yellow arc is a heads up, a caution zone. Smooth air only, please. And that little red line at 194 knots, that's VNE, never exceed speed. You push past that and you're risking damage to the airplane, period.
The DA42 is also cool because it's certified for 2 different operating categories, and this changes the G-forces the airframe can take. In the normal category, you're limited to a pretty steep 60-degree bank. But if you switch to the utility category, that limit jumps to a wild 90 degrees. We're talking wings pointing straight to the sky and the ground. It's a huge testament to this plane's structural strength.
And check this number out. This shows you just how capable this machine really is. It has a service ceiling of 18,000 feet. That is high. That's high enough to fly above a lot of the weather, which turns it from a simple day trip plane into a serious, high-performance aircraft for long cross-country flights.
Okay, having 2 engines is a massive, massive safety advantage. But here's the thing about flying. It's not about hoping things don't go wrong. It's about knowing exactly what to do when they do. And believe me, if an engine fails, knowing your numbers is everything.
So let's just put ourselves in that scenario for a second. An engine fails. The plane starts to yaw and roll to one side. A pilot's first job, always, is to fly the airplane. So what are the absolute critical speeds they need to nail right now to stay in control? The first, and maybe the most critical speed of all, is VMCA. It stands for Minimum Control Speed in the Air. For the DA42, that's 65 knots. At that speed, with one engine dead and the other at full power, the rudder has just enough strength to keep the plane flying straight. You get any slower than that, and the good engine will literally overpower the rudder, sending the plane into a turn you cannot stop.
So once you've got the plane under control, your next target speed is VYSE. That's the best rate of climb you can get on a single engine. And here is just a brilliant piece of design. It's 90 knots, the exact same speed as the best rate of climb with 2 engines. Think about that. In a super high-stress situation, the pilot only has to remember one number, 90 knots. That's their ticket to either climbing away or at least minimizing how fast they descend.
And in a real worst-case scenario, like an aerodynamic spin, your gut instincts are your worst enemy. This procedure, it's not a suggestion, it's a precise, memorized checklist. Throttles to idle, full rudder opposite the spin, and this is the part that feels so wrong, you push the stick forward. You have to point the nose at the ground to break the stall before you can even think about recovering from the dive.
All right, after a good, safe flight, it's time to bring her home. And just like the takeoff, landing isn't a single event. It's this carefully managed sequence of slowing the plane down, adding drag and stages, all while flying by the numbers. So here's what that sequence looks like on approach. First, you slow down below 194 knots, and you can put the landing gear down. Then, once you're below 137, you can add your first notch of flaps. Slower still, below 111 knots, you can go to full landing flaps. Each one of those steps adds drag and changes the wing shape, getting the plane all set up for that final target speed of 85 knots on final approach.
And here we have one last critical weight, and notice it's different from the takeoff weight. The max landing mass is 1,700 kilograms. Why is it less? Well, it's because the plane has burned off a bunch of heavy fuel during the flight. This lower weight makes sure the landing gear can safely handle the impact of touching down, especially if it's a firm one.
So you see, from the moment the wheels leave the ground to the moment they touch back down, these numbers aren't just trivia for aviation nerds. For a pilot, they are the language of the aircraft. They define the absolute edges of safety and the peaks of performance. Knowing them, respecting them, and flying by them, that's what makes modern aviation so incredibly safe.
It's really incredible when you stop and think about it, right? Every single flight is this constant, real-time balancing act of dozens of these critical numbers. The pilot and the machine, they're working together in the symphony of data and control just to stay safe. And it kind of leaves you with a final thought. In this whole complex dance of numbers, maybe the most important element isn't a number at all, but the trained, focused mind of the pilot who has to interpret them all.